let's go ahead and add this spin component to our app. And the idea is that when we are fetching data from our backend, we want to have this spinner right here. So let's go ahead and open up the React app. And right here, you can see that when I refresh, you can see that this is instant, right? So there is a flash where there is nothing, and then we have the actual table. But instead, what we want to have is this spin when we are loading or fetching data from our backend. So let's go ahead and integrate that. Go ahead and open up VS Code, and let's go ahead and import the spin component. And right here in the actual state, let's go ahead and say loading, or actually is, and then fetching. Let's go ahead and say is fetching. And initially, this will be set to false. So now, when we trigger this fetch, students, let's go ahead and say this dot set and then state. And then let's go ahead and say is fetching equals to true, and end that with a semicolon. And then when we get the students, let's go ahead and say that is fetching, so is and then fetching equals to false, right? So now it means that when we enter this component, basically whenever we mount the actual component, we will call the fetch students. We will set the state of fetching to true, and once we get the actual data from the server, we will set is fetching to false. So now in our render method, let's go ahead and say if and then is and then fetching. So if it is fetching, we want to return. So basically, we want to return a container, and inside of that container, we want to have the spin. And basically, let me go back to the actual docs. So spin, I want to use this one right here. So let me open that up, and you can see that we have the indicator. An indicator takes an ant icon. So basically, let me go ahead and grab that, and then let me simply paste that inside here, and we need to import the icon. If I scroll down, so now I can say indicator equals to, and then pass the ant icon. And in fact, let me just remove this from here because I don't want this to be invoked every time that we render the actual method. So let me just remove that, and then just before the actual class, let's go ahead and have a function that returns that. So get and then indicator icon, and this will be equal to a function that will return the icon. So now I can simply say get and then ant indicator right here. So if I find it, so right here, just like that, and then invoke that. So now if I save and actually end that with semicolon right there, if I save and then go back to our browser, you can see that we have is fetching is not defined, line 45. Fair enough. So where is it? Is fetching is not defined, and that's because we need to get it from our state is fetching. Save that, go back, and you can see that now that was instant. So if you have React Dev Tools installed, so if you have this extension installed, what you can do is actually right click, go to inspect, React, and then right here you can see that we have access to our state. And basically now what I can do is actually switch that on. So I'm going to toggle that to true. You can see that we have our loader working. And in fact, if I then switch it to false, you can see that it's working. So let's go ahead and actually pause the server so you can see working, and also let's center the actual icon. So go back to VS Code and open up container.js, and right here let's actually align things. So I'm going to add the text and then align, and this should be center. Let's see if that works. So if I refresh that and then enable that, and there we go. So you can see that it's actually loading. So, it doesn't look that bad, to be honest. You could have it centered right here, so right in the middle with some CSS, right? So now if I refresh this, you can see that the loader, but it's very quick because it loads immediately from the server. But let's actually go back to IntelliJ, and if I pretty much stop it, and then let me add a breakpoint right here, and then run this in debug mode. So I'm going to press this debug icon. There we go. It's up and running. Now, if I go to Chrome and refresh, you can see that that took me to this breakpoint. But if I go back to Chrome, you can see that this is now loading and waiting for information. So as soon as I release this, so if you press play again and then go back, you can see that we have our table. And there we go. So now you have a loader or a spin component within our web application.